Hi, I'm Gayla. After 20 years of climbing the corporate ladder, I took the leap and started my own business to pursue my dream of creating a work-from-anywhere lifestyle. Having the freedom to work from practically anywhere is such a cool feeling. You're in the right place if you're looking for ideas and inspiration to start and grow your own online business. Every week in this podcast, you'll receive practical ideas, hints, tips, and tricks to help you grow your online business where you can leverage your time and you can accomplish more. You too can experience wonderful adventure and freedom as you live life on your own terms. Hi there and welcome to the show. Many people are intimidated and frustrated by trying to bring their personal brand to life through social media, live events, and public relations. If that's you, then you're really going to love this episode because I've asked Lauren V. Davis to the show as she shares her experience in growing not only her brick and mortar business, but also her online marketing business, Lauren Davis Creative. Lauren lives near Chicago and works with people all over the world to overcome their personal branding disconnect and grow their presence so that they can focus on sales, exposure, leadership, and community impact through her marketing consultancy, Lauren Davis Creative, and her podcast, The Real Personal Branding Podcast. Lauren V. Davis has been named one of the 20 people you should know, a person to watch, and a face of tourism in the Midwest, as well as being recognized as the Up Next Future Leader by Gatehouse Media. Lauren has received U.S. Senate recognition for her passionate dedication to helping businesses succeed, and her expert social media advice has been featured in articles by the Huffington Post, Reader's Digest, as well as over a dozen podcast episodes, including Build Your Network with Travis Chappell and Brand New Podcast with Mike Kim. When she's not running her two businesses in Rockford, Illinois, she is traveling the globe, learning and networking at conferences and workshops to better serve her clients with that knowledge. Lauren's natural and undying passion revolves around seeing people and organizations that do good. I'm excited for you to meet Lauren, so let's hop right into the interview. Lauren, I am so happy that you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to finally connect with you on this podcast. And it's a wonderful podcast. So thank you for having me on.
Much appreciated. I follow your podcast. We've met virtually. We know some of the same people, and I'm super delighted to have you on the show to introduce you to my listeners. So let's just start out with telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Okay. I have a little bit of a unique story. Like most entrepreneurs, we were always starting businesses when we were little, starting little businesses, lemonade stands. Almost all entrepreneurs I'm finding have a story similar to that, like a little bit of an entrepreneurial side as a kid. But what really happened that kind of spun me into this journey is when I was 19, my boyfriend, then husband now, we opened a record store. We decided to dive full force into it and create this store that no one really necessarily needed, but in a slightly downturn economy. And it was definitely a lesson that we'll never forget. It was a very big and exciting lesson in entrepreneurship through the lens of experience. So we started this record store. I started marketing. I started getting us online everywhere and trying to find different ways to get people to know about our business. And in the process, I remember thinking to myself, what is this exactly that I'm doing? What is this process that I'm doing where I'm studying these the behaviors of people coming in, where I'm studying the psychology of how people come to know about our shop and creating flyers and graphics. And I came up with graphic design and marketing. So I changed my college track and went to school for more graphic design, marketing, business. And I can honestly say the best experience I got is through real life experience. And soon people started asking me, Lauren, can you do this for us? Can you work with us? Can you help us understand social media? Can you help us understand marketing? And I started opening my business up to more businesses in the community. A lot of local businesses had questions. They were struggling. They were worried and scared about not being able to make it through. And they said, we just feel like we need to band together. And I said, this is a great idea. So I worked with a couple other small business owners in town, and we started this nonprofit group called Winnebago Buy Local, which helps educate local businesses in my community. From there, we started a social media conference and multiple events throughout the city to educate small business owners. So through this very organic experience of learning marketing and learning how to represent business owners and get to know tons of different local business owners came my marketing business that actually now helps lots of podcasters and speakers and thought leaders. But what I do is I take those small business marketing concepts and bring them to a completely different industry that is not used to using them. And through that process, I've created this really, really great business, great clients that I'm so grateful for.
What I love about you, Lauren, and what I learned about you through your podcast and following you is in your story, you started at 19. You just started just doing didn't wait for school. You just learned by doing. That's inspiring to me. You didn't wait for a degree to learn how to use it. You jumped in with both feet and lived life and created a business. How long have you had the record store?
So this year we're celebrating 14 years in business. It's been a crazy year, 2020, obviously. So I'm 32 now. When we started, my boyfriend was 25. And like I said, he's my husband now. And I really give him a lot of that credit for those jumping in days. Not because honestly, we were so young that there was no other option other than to just dive in. Like we could have worked for other people, but we did work. If I'm being completely honest, we did both have part-time jobs for the first couple of years to try to keep our businesses afloat. So I worked at a chain bakery, and I would open the bakery in the morning, and then I would drive to our store called Culture Shock in Rockford, Illinois. I'd drive there as fast as I could to open the doors by noon. We were open 12 to 8 and every day, 7 days a week. My husband worked at a gas station early in the morning. He would open the gas station at like 3 o'clock in the morning or work the early shift. He would do the same thing, come to the store. He would, check me off. So I'd be able to go work on some marketing stuff, and he would work. And for the first couple of years, that's kind of how we made it work. We didn't think failure was an option. We were just like, well, whatever it takes, and we were young enough, and I would say young and stupid enough, not stupid in a bad way, but just young and naive enough to just say, well, we're not going to close this down. We've already worked so hard for it. So let's just do it. And that was, and that's what we did. And that's why it's so meaningful to me, because I know that I understand this experience from a lens of truly doing it with nothing, having zero savings, zero, cash flow, and that we did this from scratch and have become part of a community, and part of a community of not just local business owners, but of our local community too, part of a music community, part of a community of people who love to collect vinyl or people who love to buy purposeful products. And it just really became something very meaningful to us.
What's the difference in marketing, like a brick and mortar versus like an online business? Because you help both.
So there's a few things that I find that are similar. There's a lot of things that are different, a lot of things that are similar. Obviously, we all like to think about the differences because we think that they're so different, so we have to attack them from a different way. But if you apply small business principles to online businesses and digital businesses, you're going to stand out from the crowd. And I mean this in the way of building communities. I always talk about on Instagram or LinkedIn, when you get those cold direct message pitches and they just feel weird and slimy and you don't like them. I always ask people to think about Instagram or social media platforms as just kind of like a networking event. So if you were in a small business and you were heading out to your local networking event and you're a brick and mortar, you want to tell people about your business, or even if you were not a brick and mortar, but a service and you were out at a networking event, a networking party, there are a couple types of people in the room, right? There's the person that walks up to you, and I mean, I think maybe you and I are both vertically challenged. We're both shorter.
Yep.
Okay. So I think so this has happened to me a million times and probably has happened to you too. But someone walks up to you in the room at a networking event and they are just looking past you or looking over you to see who the next best person in the room they can talk to is, instead of listening to your response or actually getting to know you. They pitch you their elevator pitch, give you their business card and walk away, and you are just kind of left standing there saying, what was that? Okay, definitely not talking to that guy again, or definitely not talking to that lady again. The digital landscape and social media is just like that, and marketing your business is just like that. So when people think, oh, I can catch more fish with a larger net, send out these cold direct messages, send out these pitches, and why isn't anyone coming to follow me? Why isn't anyone following my page or liking my content? Well, because you're not building a relationship with them. Back to the networking event example, you also know the type of person where you connect with them at a networking event. You suddenly feel like you've been friends forever. You have lots of different things in common. You're talking to each other. You're making this connection. You switch contact information. Maybe you add each other on social media, or you get a card from them. And then the next day you get an email from them, or you email them. You're connected in email now. And then you make up a date to go have coffee together. You go meet up for coffee. And then several touch points later, you are doing business together. They're working with you. You're working with them. Someone is making money from the transaction, but it feels good. It feels right. You know they're a qualified lead. They're a good customer. So I don't understand why we think of social media in a different way. We say that social media is for building connections and for staying authentic and staying genuine to yourself. And then we go out and use social media the opposite way. We advertise, we promote, we aren't using it to build relationships. So I come at social media from the standpoint, whether I'm working it with a speaker, a podcaster, a thought leader, or an author, I come at social media from the standpoint of we need to use it to build these relationships and to create a community around the business that we have, just like you would in real life, just like you would with human beings in real life, because the truth is we are all human beings behind our digital devices.
Absolutely. You and I think very, very much the same in that. Cut the hype and let's just talk. I'd rather, make friends. There's digital tools they're out there that helps us communicate better, but there's a lot of hype, a lot of hype.
There
And
is. And I always think back to the way in which I have grown throughout the years. And it's all based on connections. Just to be specific, we are talking about personal brand businesses when
yeah,
you're talking about building relationships, because of course there are exceptions to this rule, such as big corporate hotels or something
right.
like that. That's not the same thing. You're not building personal relationships with them. But for the sake of clarity, we are talking about when you're building a personal brand business. So
What if,
coaches, thought leaders, podcasters, authors, services, anything where any type of business, especially local businesses, where
local
you are
businesses?
building a community around your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's always brings me back to what you were just saying, brings me back to the way in which my business has grown throughout the years. And I've always felt very blessed that I've never had to market my business. I had to market the record store, but my marketing business, design business, and personal branding business, I've never really had to market because of the relationships I've made. And I can think back to 2010 when I first started, when I said, okay, I am open for business, Lauren Davis Creative. I always think back to those days, and I think I can pinpoint from that day the people that I was working with then who introduced me to this person, who introduced me to this person, that who introduced me to these people who inspired me to go to this conference. And that at that conference, I met this business mentor who became my friend, who opened doors for me to this person. And it just keeps going on and on. I mean, I could go on forever. And those were actually examples. Like I literally was thinking of those people in my head as I was saying that. So we all remember those people who open doors for us and who inspire us to keep moving to the next best thing and making the next best business move. And so if you think about, again, like real life, why are we marketing ourselves differently? Our goal in marketing should be to build that trust, build those relationships with people, whether that's on social media, whether that's in real life with a handshake or a hug. Those types of things those relationship building tools are the same in digital world and in the real world.
Lauren Davis Creative, in that business, how do you serve your clients? In what ways?
So I try to take the frustration and that anguish and frankly intimidation out of social media marketing and help thought leaders, speakers, authors bring their personal brand online and make it actually fun for them to use their social media or to have somebody carry out their social media in a way that creates more sales, more exposure, and more friends.
I know you as the Instagram girl. Now, do you do anything else for your clients, or are you primarily Instagram?
So I am super nerdy about almost all of the social media platforms. I love social media. I know that social media can be scary. I know that there is a lot of stuff. I predict in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot more social responsibility from the social media apps based on how people are addicted to their phones and, that kind of data that's coming out. But I am a social media nerd. So I love Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok. I love all of them. And what I really love about those platforms is that if you can understand the behavior of how people use the platforms and mix that with the algorithm of how each algorithm works on each of those platforms, then you know exactly how to use social media and you know exactly which audience is showing up for you on each social media platform. So with my clients, we walk through a lot of different audits. We run their social media through a lot of different tests. We get to measure and see how their audience is showing up for them on different social media platforms. And we develop a plan of where to focus their strategy. So I think that why you think of me as the Instagram girl is because that is the that is the platform that people love, but that just stumps them. They like hanging out on it. They like looking at other people's pictures and seeing their stories, but they're kind of like, I don't understand how to make this work for my business or my service. Mm-hmm. And so that is the platform I end up teaching the most because nobody really wants to teach it and nobody quite understands it and they want someone else to teach it and they want to learn about it. So Instagram is definitely the number one topic I always end up talking about. But on the personal side of it, I actually love Instagram because I think it's a really good, almost personal place to build your personal brand, but also to just connect with people through messages, through comments. It's a great place to find inspiration. It's a great place to learn, learn from reputable people. It's a great place to find a community that is kind of like you or that has similar interests. I love all of the functions. I love stories. I love the behind the scenes look at people's lives you can get through stories. And Instagram is definitely where I hang out. So if anyone is interested in connecting with me, find me on Instagram because I will definitely be your friend in real life if you connect with me on Instagram.
Yeah, I like Instagram because it's a fun place. It's not so, I don't know, the other places are heavy and noisy. Yeah. And this is for the interest that I have. I like the pictures.
I got to give a shout out to my friend Carrie Gottschalk. Mm-hmm. She is a Facebook and Messenger bot expert. She's amazing, but she also loves traveling. For instance, she's in London right now and she's a total foodie. And something she told me that she does that now I've adapted every restaurant I go to, every new restaurant is that when she goes to a restaurant, instead of looking at the restaurant's perfectly curated photos, she goes to the location of the restaurant and looks at what users have posted
Ah,
from their food at that restaurant. And that's how she determines what she wants to eat.
well, that's fun.
Like, that is such a
That is
great
fun.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is. And we have a somebody that we had followed in the past that's kind of fun, the roaming pint, and they'd go around the country and kind of critiquing small breweries. It's kind of fun.
Cool.
and,
That is
and
fun.
yeah, and there's so much that we can do and have fun in life on social. I think just learning the social platform and the algorithms and learning how to use it, but ultimately kind of cutting through the hype and just talking and just sharing.
Yeah,
Uh,
getting to know people. Like when someone comes into our record store, we welcome them to the store. If they're an unfamiliar face, we've gotten to know quite a few of our customers over the last 14 years. But if they're an unfamiliar face to us, we say, "Hey, is this your first time in? Or you look familiar but not sure." If they look a little familiar. And if they say, "No, I haven't been here before," I'm like, "Oh, that's so awesome. How did you hear about us?"
yeah,
These are conversations that not only make the customer feel very validated and happy that they stepped in, but now we have more of a relationship than I have goods, you buy goods from me. Like
hmm
that's much more of a different relationship now, and we will make sure they're on our email list before they leave the store. We will make sure they are going to have a good day by the time they leave the store. This is something that's super important to us as a local business owner. So I use those same concepts online. It takes 5 seconds to say hi to someone who is newly following you and comment on one of their posts. It takes so little effort to just make someone's day. And especially in 2020,
yeah,
man, we need to be kind to each other. This
yeah,
is this is
absolutely,
non-negotiable. Yes.
absolutely. Everybody, let's just be nice.
Yes.
So a smile does a lot.
I've been doing a few interviews for local TV and news stations and radio stations, and what I have been saying to the audience members that are listening is, one, please support your local businesses right now,
Right,
everywhere in the USA, everywhere in the world. Please support them as much as possible. I know that's not what this interview is about, but
right.
it's very
No,
important.
no, it is.
Secondly, if you can't figure out what's going on with that local business, if they're not updating their Facebook or if they're not on Instagram, they might just be trying to like do whatever they can in their own business to get by at the moment. So please reach out to them and ask them how you can support them right now. Is it buying a gift card? Is it working with them through a collaboration? Is it simply coming in to purchase something even though you haven't seen them on Facebook in a while? Is it picking up curbside or to-go food? Ask them what it is that you can do to help them in that moment, and make a list of the businesses that you don't want to see disappear and
Mhm.
try to work that into your budget. So especially restaurants right now are getting hit pretty hard, I think, all across the country, because lots of them can't be open for indoor dining service, and lots of them don't have, they had never planned to do curbside until this year.
Mhm.
So what I would say for local businesses that are restaurants is look at your grocery budget for the week and don't overextend yourself, but build it into your grocery budget so it makes sense. So say on Tuesdays, we're always going to get tacos. On or Saturdays, we'll always get pizza. And make sure that you hit those businesses consistently as much as possible, but build it into your own budget so that way you don't overextend yourself and burn yourself out either.
Very,
Those are
very
my
good
tips for
advice.
helping local businesses
Yeah,
right now.
very good advice
Super important.
because small businesses, well, businesses in general, I mean, but especially small local businesses, they become our friends, a staple in our lives. So it's up to us as consumers to help them along and
Yeah.
extend out a hand of friendship by
Yes.
continuing to work with them and have them in our community. Now,
Yes, very much so.
Lauren, you started out with a brick and mortar, jumped right into it. at a young age, and then you transitioned. You still have the brick and mortar, but you transitioned to serve the online community in marketing and design. So I'll leave it up to you on how you want to answer it, of which hat you want to, but what's the biggest challenge that you face in growing your business?
This is a good question. I think the biggest challenge is that I had to figure out how to say no to things. So, well, I don't know if you follow Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or any of the
Mhm.
personality tests, but I'm Enneagram too. So I really like to help people. I really like to give. And when I see someone struggling, it takes everything in me to not just say yes to whatever I
I'll
can to
help.
help
Let me
them.
just help.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, don't like I always tell people that I'm like, just accept my love. Just accept it. This is my form of love and you need to take it. So, but I learned that saying yes means saying no to something else. And that's really, really important for an Enneagram 2 who is a helper. That's really important lesson for me to learn. So, whether that meant setting boundaries for the amount of time that I would spend working on the store, setting boundaries for the amount of time I would spend working on the marketing for the store, versus working on marketing for my clients, versus speaking, versus coaching. I had to kind of boil down what was most meaningful to me, what was most fulfilling to me, and understand that saying yes to something means saying no to another thing. Now, what I do and what I learned, actually, something I learned from our mutual friend Mike Tam a long time
Hmm.
ago, is this exclusionary persona principle, because I I like everyone. It's like, I don't know if it's a flaw, but I like almost all people.
Hmm.
And so I couldn't say I couldn't figure out who I wanted to work with specifically for the longest time, in my early days. And what it boiled down to is I wrote down that I could pinpoint in my head a few specific people I did not want to work with, whether it was because I had worked with them before and I felt like our personalities didn't mesh. Maybe it wasn't like a super personal thing, but they just exhausted me and I couldn't figure out why. So I wrote down qualities of people I don't want to work with and qualities of situations I don't want to be in. I wrote them down and I'm looking at them right now. I have them taped up to the side of my computer, because as I get new clients or people ask me to work with them, I've learned to be very careful with my time. And so now I can always look to that list and say, do they fit into any of these things I don't want to work with? Is that why I'm hesitating? If so, I just tell them I can't work with them at the moment. And, I'll refer them on to someone I think would be more qualified or better to work with them at the time. So that is the biggest challenge I've had. And it actually works for both businesses, is the ability to say no.
Oh, that's very good perspective because it's so hard to say no. I want to help everybody.
Yes, it really is. And I do also agree. I want to help anyone who's having problems with Instagram, who's having problems with social media. I used to just fill my calendar with just trying to help people overcome their frustrations. And I realized that in the process, I was not making time for myself or for my life to flourish or for me to enjoy simple things without being stressed about helping someone else. And so it's a balance. I still will help as many people as possible,
Right.
as many people as I can pack in, but I have learned my boundaries, and that saying yes to something is saying no to something else.
But it may be the timing because did you find that when you're saying yes too much, sure, the stuff for yourself was lacking, so there wasn't that balance, but that meant that you couldn't show up and be your full self or follow through on the people that you did say yes to because there were too many. So
Definitely, absolutely.
so the
Yeah, I
timing may not be there. You may be able to help everybody, but the timing has to be right for both folks.
Yes, and for me, I'm a little perfectionistic in the way of I don't like to mess up due dates. I don't like to cancel things, and I really like to give my best quality. So when I noticed my quality slipping, when I noticed I was getting a little too behind on due dates, and I was internal, even if my clients didn't care, I personally, and we're talking a while back here, but I was personally beating myself up about it quite a bit. I was like, okay, this is a sign. I need to fix this. I cannot help everyone. People might be upset that I can't work with them for a few months, but I will get through it. It's going to be fine. So if anyone has problems saying no, just know that you can come out on the other side of it, and you will be fine, and people love you no matter what. They will understand. They should understand if they respect your time as well.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many different levels of helping folks. And you have your podcast, the Real Personal Branding Podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Real Personal Branding Podcast, we just went through a name change. This is the new name. It used to be the Business Event Playbook Podcast. And it started as a podcast to kind of dig deep with the secrets behind successful entrepreneurs that are running their own live mastermind weekends, conferences, and workshop type events. And then 2020 happened and the pandemic, and suddenly no one is allowed to host these in-person events necessarily. There's some small events happening, of course, still. But I felt forced, and I felt like personally, I felt like I can't do one more episode about a virtual event. I just doesn't, it's not lighting me up inside. So I pivoted it, and what I'm really passionate about is building personal brands online, building personal brands through social media marketing, and using those small business principles like we were talking about. So I thought, how can I roll this up into a podcast? Came up with the Real Personal Branding Podcast, and that is relaunching right now. So if you go check it out, you can go kind of see what we're into. But I've had some amazing guests. I'm leaving all of the previous episodes up there because events will come back at some point. We will want to talk about events again and learn from all of these amazing entrepreneurs I've had the ability to interview. But moving forward, we're going to talk a lot more about marketing, a lot more about building your personal brand. And my favorite part of this and having a podcast is just the interviews and getting to talk to people about how they built their very successful entrepreneurship business using their personal brand and what platforms they used to get there, whether it was podcasting or being on a stage. Those things are really exciting to me. So these interviews are great, and it's really been a fun time having this podcast.
Awesome. I enjoy it. I was listening to it when it was the event playbook, and I'm excited for your new interviews. I love how you've transitioned. We need to express ourselves and help individuals, and see, you lead by doing, and you're helping everybody, all the people, but because not just from one-on-one helping them as a client, but you're out there with your content, with your podcast. I love that. Go
That was
ahead.
one of the ways that I was able to say no more often, is by reminding myself that by saying no to some specific projects or little one-off situations, I was able to make more time for a podcast that could help many people at the same time, or for my free Facebook group, which also helps people learn social media marketing. And that was one of those things I was like, okay, I can help a lot more people with a little bit less time by teaching it to many more people at once, while taking on some bigger projects that I feel very strongly and passionately about.
It gives individuals time to kind of meet in the middle. They may not be ready to have you work one-on-one with, but they get to know you and they trust you, and then that's when they want to hire you. That's what I love about being able to create. I think that we live in such a wonderful age that we can create our own radio show. We can create our own TV station. We have our own newspaper via blogs, and being able to distribute them and publicize them through social media. I think it's great.
It's so much fun.
It is
That's why I
fun.
love social media.
And that's why I think we should think about growing our business as a fun prospect, not anonymous. I love that. You have a link for Instagram content planning worksheet?
Yeah, so like we were talking about before, what I end up teaching the most is Instagram, and the number one question I get is, what do I post? I have no idea what to post. I know I need to get started on Instagram. I have zero ideas, and where do I start? So I created this free resource, and we'll leave the link in your show notes, I believe.
Yep.
It's
The link will be
about
there.
it's about how to create your next 15 Instagram posts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I also include in that link a freebie for the 2020 Instagram algorithm. So
Good
they
deal.
generally change it a little bit here and there throughout the year. They don't change it very much. So we could possibly expect some changes in 2021, but they're not going to be that so far off from this Instagram algorithm worksheet that the same principles won't apply. So if you want to learn exactly how the Instagram algorithm works, taken from the words of Instagram themselves, and if you want to learn how to create your next 15 plus posts, you can do so with those free resources.
Now, this just popped into my mind. I hear a lot of negative talk about Facebook. Just people are tired of it, and the algorithms are just terrible, and my business doesn't get anywhere. I mean, just all the negativity. I don't hear that as much in Instagram, but Facebook owns Instagram. What's your
Yeah,
take on that? I mean, is there gloom and doom? Is there just differences in how they're run?
I think that I do hear that negativity about Facebook as well. I also think that some people talk about how Facebook is their game changer and that's where people are showing up for them. So it really does depend on where your audience is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I always say you should choose one platform where you love hanging out, like where you're excited to log in every day. For you and I, that might be Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You're excited to open it up and check it out. Because if you can make social media fun for you, then you can have fun on other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So then you choose one additional platform where your audience is, where you're going to best serve your audience. So whether that is Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it might be. Some people experience great luck on Facebook, especially inside Facebook groups where they're building communities of like-minded people or people who need their services. Other people, I log on to Facebook, I look through some of the groups that I'm in, and I don't scroll very much on the newsfeed. Maybe once in a while I'll scroll through the newsfeed and like some people's posts and their most recent stuff, but I don't spend a lot of time in the newsfeed. I do have, when you do need to have a Facebook, especially if you are a local business, because people do use it to look for your hours, look for updates, look for specials. They want to see your face, and the posts, even with local business owners that I work with and work with on their strategy for social media, the more that the local business owners can show their face in their posts, the better their Facebook pages perform. And to be completely honest, people want to break away from the noise that's on Facebook. There's a lot of noise, a lot of drama, a lot of negativity, like you're mentioning. And the more they see your smiling face or they hear a story that warms their heart, the more they're going to pay attention, and the more they're going to say, I want to keep paying attention to Gayla because she is a light in dark times. I want to see what she's posting today. So it really depends on the platform. It depends on who your audience is and how they're showing up. And I think you should choose your platforms accordingly.
And I think you said something very interesting. You were saying, me personally, this is how I use Facebook. This is how I use Instagram. We all have our different personal preferences in the different platforms. And we, as business owners, can't please everyone. And people show up in different ways in different platforms. And that's very important to know. And if you're starting out and doing everything yourself, picking one, the one that you're most feel like you can log in every day and have fun with it, start there. It's
Yep.
okay to miss out on a different platform because you got to get into the rhythm of at least posting, at least
Yeah.
experimenting. And you can't do it in every place, not by yourself, I don't think.
Right. No, you should choose one and just be consistent for a while, then and add that second one and almost repurpose the content while you're getting used to being consistent.
Hmm.
Then you can take on other platforms, get to know other platforms, and get really, really good at those platforms. But you don't have to be good at every single platform right away. If you want to save your usernames and set up your account, that's not a bad idea. But you don't have to be perfect on every platform right from the
Yeah.
beginning. Try to scoop that thought out of your head and just start with the platform that you can have fun on.
That's right. I would love to ask you, Lauren, in your journey of building your businesses, what has been your favorite resource or book that has really made a difference for you professionally?
I was just talking about this with someone in my direct messages yesterday, actually, on Instagram. I can honestly say my favorite resource has been the Enneagram personality test because while people have much different thoughts on personality tests and how they work and how people act out what they see in these personality tests. I get that side of it for sure.
Hmm.
But what I've learned is I learned a lot more about myself when I figured out what number I was. It's a it's a 1 through 9 grading and I'm a 2. And what I also learned is by learning about how the other numbers are, I can sometimes pinpoint how or what number other people are. So or if I am doing a social media audit with somebody and they let me know what their number is, I know how to best deliver them the information that they want to hear. So that way it makes sense for them. Because if I know what number they are, I know what number they associate with the most, I know a little bit more about their personality and what it means to them to be successful. So the Enneagram is my absolute favorite resource for business. It's not just for relationships and friendships and marriage. It's also an extremely helpful business tool if you can kind of narrow it down and learn about it.
Yeah, I can see how you communicate with your clients, but then also how you may help communicate on their behalf in their social posts and just learning the different Enneagrams. Now, did you take your Enneagram test from a specific person, or do you have, there's like,
I wish I wish I could tell you that I took the one online that is way longer and more in depth
mhm,
than the really fast track ones you can take. So that's what I took. Actually, it was Mike Kim, our
uh-huh,
friend Mike, who told me about it first. He talked about it multiple times before I took it, and I went to Nashville to hang out, and he spoke at a conference. I took photos of him for that conference and worked with him on social media for that conference. It was the Tribe conference,
uh-huh,
and we had a mastermind the following day at this house that we were all staying at. And I said, all of the mastermind people were staying at. And I said, I walked in and we were talking about some other stuff. And then I was like, yeah, I still haven't taken the Enneagram test. And he was like, oh, well, you're a 2, but you should take it and just find out. And I didn't know what any of the numbers meant. So there was no way I could have like guided the test towards a 2. I had no idea what any of the numbers stood for at the time. This is probably like close to 3 years ago.
mhm.
And I took it and I was just like 100% a 2. So he already knew I was a
You
2, but
already
I was
knew.
like, oh, and then when I read it and I remember thinking like like I feel so seen. I don't understand
How that
how
works.
this guide knows me so well through this online guide. I was like, I don't get how this is even possible for it to know so much about how I feel about the world. So it was really interesting for me. And since then, I just I adapted it into so many different parts of my business.
Well,
So Mike is to blame for my Enneagram obsession,
That's
but I
funny.
will found my way to it at some point, I'm sure. Yeah, and if anyone is listening to this episode who is an Enneagram obsessed person like I am, please let me know what your Enneagram number is. Let's talk about it. I love nerding out about stuff like this.
That's fun. That is fun.
Actually, put me and Gayla in a group message. We can all talk about it together.
Yeah, that would be fun. And how can people find you?
My Instagram is L Davis Creative. You can find me there. I hang out on Instagram a lot, check it several times a day. So come by and let me know that you listen to this episode. This next best place to find me is in my free Facebook group called Understanding Social Media Marketing for Entrepreneurs. And please come join us in there. It's a great group of entrepreneurs that are all super friendly and helpful to each other about learning social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today, Lauren. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Be sure to catch Lauren's newly branded podcast, The Real Personal Branding Podcast. All her contact information and resource links are right here in the show notes. Thanks for joining me today. And if you found this show helpful, I would love it if you'd subscribe and even leave a review. Well, thanks for listening. And until next time, have a fantastic week.